$74.16, the pound buying $1.27 and €1.12. LBC weather, dry and increasingly cloudy across eastern and central England and northern Scotland through tonight. Clearer but chilly elsewhere with strong winds in the southwest, a low of 7. Tomorrow sunny and very warm with the hottest conditions being over the west and south, a high of 28 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, good evening and thank you for joining me. I'm standing in for Nigel Farage this evening, so those of you who are members of the Brexit Party may think I'm an awful snowflake, so my apologies to you, but for those of you of a more reasonable turn of mind, I'm not a snowflake for the record. What we're discussing this evening is this YouGov poll that says that while 43% would back Remain if there were a new vote, 57% back Leave one way or another. Now, they're not all backing the same form of Leave, but then the Remain bit isn't disaggregated because probably many of those 43% think the EU is pretty corrupt and would like changes, but think it's better to stay. 57% want to leave one way or another, with 28% of the total backing leaving without a deal. So what I want to know is whether you think this is representative of Britain right now, whether it's where the majority opinion is, where it's your opinion, or whether you think this poll is wrong and doesn't add up. You know all the numbers to call, but I'll remind you, in case you didn't write it down earlier, it's 0345 6060 973 on the telephone, it's 84850 on text, and if you tweet, it's at LBC. So those are all the details. I think it is reasonably accurate. I think that opinion hasn't changed very much, and when one listens to Sir John Curtis, who is the most distinguished, or one of the most distinguished psephologists in the country, he's been writing for some time that the polling indicates people are pretty much where they were in 2016. They voted to leave or to remain, they haven't changed their minds, but that a lot of people feel that when you have a vote, the vote ought to be implemented. And that's what Boris Johnson has promised to do. I'm very strongly backing Boris. I think he's the right answer. And the promise yesterday that he made absolutely unequivocally, no ifs or buts, we will leave on the 31st of October, seems to me to be really important. And Jeremy Hunt's response of saying that we're just all little Englanders, I think doesn't understand what is going on with Brexit, doesn't understand why people voted to leave, many of whom are in fact internationalist and feel that the narrow European focus is the wrong one, is one that is backward-looking, is looking at a system that worked in the 60s and 70s but doesn't work in the 21st century. And it's also slightly abusive of voters to say they're just little Englanders. It's dismissive, whereas what voters want is to be respected, and it's part of the issue with the metropolitan elite looking down at voters in the rest of the country who didn't do what they were expected to do like good little voters. They actually voted for independence, for freedom and for their own democracy by expressing a view that they wanted to leave the European Union, which, as I said, Boris is committed to doing on the 31st of October. Anyway, we've got calls coming in. Anthony in Woking, what is your view? Do you think this poll is reasonably representative?
Well, I mean, one camp says one figure and another camp says another, so why don't we just have another referendum now that we know the facts and see what the people decide? I mean, everyone bangs on about the people, but it only seems to be representative of the 17.4 million back in 2016.
Did you say only representative of 17.4 million? 17.4 million sounds quite a lot of people to me.
Well, it is, but it's not a high proportion of the actual population of the country, is it?
It's a majority of those who voted, and all elections run on who turns out to vote.
It's not an election, though, was it? It was an advisory referendum.
Well, a referendum is an election, obviously.
No, it's not.
Yes,
it's an
it
opinion
is.
poll. It's not. It's an opinion poll.
No, that's simply not true.
If you look up the definition of a referendum, it is a opinion poll.
No, a referendum is a form of election. It's not a general election.
But it's not legally binding, is it?
It's not an election for Parliament.
But it's not a legally binding vote.
It is a vote that the government said would have effect. Oh, he's gone. Anthony, I'm so sorry, has gone off in a huff. I don't think he liked the answers he was getting. But we can go to Martin in Southend-on-Sea. I hope he's having a nice day by the seaside. Martin, hello.
Hi, nice to speak to you, Jacob.
Thank you for calling.
That about sums up this country. You've got the biggest morons in the world ringing up, and that's their view. I voted Conservatives, and I voted to leave. But when I went down to that ballot, when I went down there and I ticked my box, and it said leave, in or out, it didn't say let's go and have a deal or no, like let's make a deal or no deal. I voted to leave. I didn't vote for a deal. I didn't vote for anything. And I will never, ever vote for Conservatives again. With Theresa May saying 100 odd times, and I sit there and watch Question Time. I watch it all. And do you know what I think we should do? Ship them all out. Ship the lot of them out. Get rid of the House of Lords. Get rid of all the yous lot. I've had enough of you.
Okay.
You shouldn't. You sponge. You take people's money. You've got people who can't have TV licenses. All of that for people to fall asleep on TV.
Well,
how is that justified?
Tell me, Martin, your concern is about the referendum result not being respected, and I completely agree with you.
Everything, no, but this is showing up. It ain't just showing up. It shows you how dodgy politics is. It shows you for what everyone is.
And you make the very good point that's been made before, that people voted to leave, didn't they? They didn't vote for a deal. The deal is separate.
I didn't vote for a deal.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm from Essex. Where I'm from Essex, all my family voted. We've always voted Conservatives, and we voted to leave.
Okay, so
Theresa May, all you've done is put a Remainer in there, right? What you've just seen there was with the people.
Don't blame me. I kept on trying to get rid of her.
Yeah, but then you've got people who voted for their treaty. And you think to yourself, how this has happened makes me feel sick. I think, how have we got to this point? Democracy.
So tell me, Martin,
you're going to have a vote.
If we leave,
you implement it.
If we leave on the 31st of October, which Boris has promised we will do, will that restore your faith, or will you?
Yes.
It will.
Yes.
Because you see, I think that's
100%.
really important. I think it is essential that we leave on the 31st of October. Otherwise, trust in politics will disappear.
Right. People don't understand we're the fifth biggest economy. They need us more than we need them. We have a massive trade deficit to Europe. How thick are these people?
Well, you put it more bluntly than I do, Martin, but thank you very much, and I hope with today's nice weather you've had a nice time in Southend-on-Sea. Thank you for calling. Lots of texts and so on coming in. John from Hampshire says most of the people I know voted to leave and still want to leave. There has been no change. And Tony says the only people whinging about a second referendum are losers. I agree with that. It is the losers' vote. But let's go to Eric in Bingham. Eric, do you think it represents the view of the British people?
Good evening, Jacob. No, I do not believe that at all. I am appalled by our country. I was the Conservative Mayor of Bingham in Nottinghamshire in 2003, and I tried to get Ken Clarke deselected because of his views on Europe, and I was told by him that he's not elected to represent the populace. He is represented to his own judgment, the Edmund Burke philosophy of Parliament. I see Hilary Benn saying that he is elected to represent the people. Which is it? What are the rules in Parliament? We don't seem to have any. It's about time we had some. You pass laws to say, if I buy something from the supermarket, it's wrong, I can lock me up. But
all right. Well, can I ask you, do you think we should leave without a deal on the 31st of October? Is that your...
Of course we should, out like a shot.
Well, as you used to be a mayor, if I may call you your worship, and thank you very much for calling. It's not a great line, so I'm going to go to Stephen, who's a new caller in Kinross in Scotland. Stephen, do you think the opinion poll's broadly right?
I think it possibly could be. Most of the people I know have split into, have diverted more into leave or no deal, but I think that's more practicality. So I'm surprised that the no deal is as low as it is, just because I cannot see a way through of a deal getting through Parliament at this point in time. Can I ask you a question about
of course,
Boris? I know you're probably quite happy having a night off not talking about Boris and the leadership election, but he yesterday said that he would like to take chunks out of the leave document, the leave arrangement that Theresa May came up with, and pass laws like EU citizens' rights and things like that. If he starts doing that with his government, will those pieces of legislation be able to be amended by people like Yvette Cooper to fiddle with the date again or to force some other event? Because the way I thought about it was the only way to get to no deal was for the government essentially not to do any legislation involving the EU. But if you start doing it, isn't that a danger?
I think you're basically right, Stephen. I think it's a very important point. I think almost everybody in the country wants to allow EU citizens who are already legally here to stay and have decent rights. I don't think there's much opposition to that at all.
I'm absolutely happy with that. I'm just worried that if we start making law about it before we leave...
You're tactically absolutely right too on that, to make that point. I think that the challenge would be to say to the Remainers or the Remoaners, do you really want to stop EU citizens having rights passed into law? Do you really want to risk all this legislation because you're still not going to accept the referendum result from 2016? And if they did object and try and change the date or do things like that, you just pull the legislation and pass it once we've left, at which point those attachments wouldn't have any relevance.
Right. So there are mechanisms for the government just to scrap it from the table if people do start getting their claws into it. That's right. And I think... Sorry, I was just a bit concerned.
I think your concern's a really wise one, actually, and thank you for raising it. But I think even the most hardline Remainers would say, look, we've got to be decent to EU citizens who are living here. Just would be improper to behave otherwise. Anyway, thank you very much for calling and being a new caller. New callers are always extremely welcome. We've had a message from Claire on Facebook who says, I don't think voters did not know or understand the complexity of leaving the EU. No, I agree with that. I think people did understand. And Neil says, Jacob, are you saying that we couldn't possibly have changed our minds? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the opinion poll shows that people still want to leave, and actually still want to leave in pretty decent numbers, with 57% overall saying that they still want us to pull out of the European Union, 28% saying a no-deal Brexit. But it's 6:15. You're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC, and it's time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The Labour MP Chris Williamson, who was suspended after claiming the party had been too apologetic over anti-Semitism, has now been readmitted. The DUP's leader says it's very important the UK leaves the European Union by October the 31st, but is refusing to back either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt to become the next Prime Minister. More than 10,000 climate change protesters have been demonstrating outside Parliament this afternoon, demanding their MPs take action. LBC weather, dry and cloudy across eastern and central England and the far north through tonight. Clearer but chilly and windy elsewhere with a low of 7 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. Delays on the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 9 for Leatherhead to junction 11 for Chertsey because of an accident earlier. And slow on Bath Road both ways from Hounslow West Station to the Henleys roundabout following another accident. In Westminster, queuing on all approaches to Parliament Square following the taxi demonstrations earlier. And delays both ways at the Rotherhithe Tunnel. On the north side of the river, queuing to Whitechapel and Blackwall. And on the south side, affecting the A200. On the trains, no service on London Overground between Surrey Quays and New Cross, and that's because of a track fault.
This is LBC.
Looking after your money. Can money feel like every money thing you do is all about money, and it gets in the money way all the money time? Let us take you and your money from to Get Money Calm. Money Supermarket.
This is LBC.
Does it matter to you how your money's invested? Think about it. You've got your own values, but do the people who invest your money share them? With a Wealthify stocks and shares ISA, you can put your money into an ethical plan. Just tell us how you want to invest. Are you cautious, adventurous, or somewhere in between? And start your Wealthify ethical ISA today. Easy. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
Come on then, Patio, you filthy animal.
Ready for a big clean-up? Get to B&Q. The Karcher K4 Full Control Pressure Washer is just £167. With 3 pressure levels, a full control trigger gun, and 1-hour click and collect, that dirt has nowhere to hide. You can do it when you B&Q it. 1-hour click and collect, restrictions apply.
Starting a business is a test of character. Opening a business account shouldn't be. In fact, it should be effortless. With Tide Business Banking, you can open a current account in minutes with no monthly fees, invoicing, accounting integration, and much more. It's why we're trusted by over 70,000 UK businesses. Download the Tide app or search Tide Business Banking today. Subject to terms and conditions, account approval and opening times may vary depending on checks required.
Managed to fill those jobs yet?
Oh, I'm struggling.
You know Mark in HR? He was telling me about Hiring Hub. It connects you to loads of vetted specialist recruitment agencies, so you can widen your candidate search quickly, without any hassle.
Really?
Yeah. You post a job, and recruitment agencies you select send you their best candidates.
Want to fill professional jobs faster? Search Hiring Hub and post your job today.
Mark's nice, isn't he?
Really?
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Well, welcome back. We're discussing this poll that says that 57% of people still want to leave, only 43% would still remain, and it ties in with the challenge Boris Johnson put down to Jeremy Hunt yesterday to say, would he commit to leave on the 31st of October? Boris is clear. Come what may, we will leave on the 31st of October if he becomes Prime Minister, and unfortunately Jeremy Hunt thinks we're little Englanders for wanting to leave. I don't know whether that's at all or whether it's just on that date. We're getting lots of messages in. Tony Jefford says, hi JRM, I think that most people would rather have another referendum. I would say 75% minimum of my friends would vote Remain. It's only the Brexiteers that don't want another vote, as they're scared of losing. I also think we'd have a much higher turnout to vote. Well, thank you, Tony, because you're one of the very few Remainers who's sent a message in today. So all those Remainers out there, I won't call you a snowflake if you call in. I'll be very polite. So please, an appeal to Remainers to give us some balance in this programme, because I've got masses of leavers sending in. The Brexit Party says, I've got respect for you, but according to Hunt, we're little Englanders. How much of this do we have to take? People's patience is wearing thin. I really don't trust him. And Adam says, I think the Leave vote would be a lot higher now. People are sick and tired of listening to all the Brexit chaos. I voted Leave, simple as that, and I'd vote to Leave again and again. Adam, I'm on your side. I'd vote to Leave again and again. Andrew in Halifax, in West Yorkshire, what is your view on this?
Good evening, Jacob. Well, I'm the most committed leaver that you'd ever likely to find, but I do think that politicians should take a lot less notice of opinion polls, irrespective of which way they go. This has been the trend now since the Scottish separatist referendum in 2014. It's happened with Brexit, and every time it goes one way or the other, it just provides a massive argument. I think the main point to remember is that the one vote that mattered took place 3 years ago, and because of a venal political class, we haven't had the result of that referendum implemented.
Now, that's right, isn't it, Andrew? I agree with you that there's such opposition to accepting that referendum result, basically from the metropolitan chattering classes who are doing everything they can to oppose what the British people voted for.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's actually a two-pronged attack. I think you have the metropolitan elites that are largely London-based on the one hand, and you've got Celtic separatists, particularly in Scotland, on the other. And one of the things that I hope Boris will do, if and when he becomes Prime Minister, is absolutely face down that Anglophobic rabble that, unfortunately, far too many Scots continue to elect, because their presence in Parliament absolutely shames that part of the United Kingdom.
Well, I think the union is very important, and I'm sure that Boris will be a champion for the union that is the United Kingdom and has been such a successful nation that we all belong to. So thank you for that, Andrew. I'm going to go to Norman in Merseyside. Norman, do you think this poll was right? Would you still vote to leave if you did vote to leave, or are you a Remainer?
Absolutely voting to leave, Jacob. I waited 40 years to have a vote to get out of this incumbent organisation, and I really can't wait until we do actually finally leave. I'm sure that the country does not have a mandate to remain anyways by law after October 31st, so I'm really looking forward to leaving at that time. I also wonder why the Remainers, who think presumably that they're just going to go back comfortably to where they were, really knew what they were voting for or remaining for, because it looks as though there's going to be very much increase in federalisation, lose control of our armed forces, and all the things that we become almost a vassal state. Is that what they really want? Where's the British spirit? For heaven's sake. And another thing, when Boris's character was being looked at, and people say, we don't trust him, we don't trust him. What about all these other politicians who've had all the problems? Corbyn, who had student fees, and then he promised student fees, and then he's unpromised it. He's been the anti-Semitic party.
Indeed.
And all these other guys, Fawcett hit somebody, Brown called somebody a bigot. Major had an affair with MPs while he was in.
Well, that's a bit of a time ago, but I think your general point is right. Boris is a very trustworthy figure. He delivered on his promises as Mayor of London. He campaigned very effectively to get out of the European Union, and he says we'll leave on the 31st of October, and I'm convinced that would happen if he becomes leader. Norman, thank you so much for calling. We do have a tweet or a text from a Remainer who says leaving would be crazy. If politicians had been truthful from the beginning, we wouldn't have wasted 3 years. Boris is a joke and Jeremy has a terrible track record. How depressing. That's from Holly, who I imagine, if she's a member of the Tory party, will send in a spoilt ballot paper. But let's go to Kevin in Peterborough, where we just had the by-election. Kevin, what's your thought on this opinion poll?
Well, hi. Really nice to speak to you, Jacob. A man of the people, I really believe that.
Thank you.
My question to you is that people have suffered so long with austerity for so many years, and maybe there is a little bit of lack of courage, shall we say, to give up, to throw in the towel and say, you know what, we don't want it. We'll stay with Europe. We'll hold their hand again. But at the end of the day, people are given their goddamn rights to a freedom of the world, and we've got no money. I mean, there's figures bandied around of £39 billion Juncker and the crew want. And the people in this country have had... It was so bad at one point that we were turning the lights off at night. So I really don't know where we're going to get the money for that.
No, but you'd like us to leave on the 31st of October and crack on with it.
Without a doubt. Yes. We've got to jump on. And we have nothing, though. We leave with nothing. We've had everything that we did have. We've sold all our engineering equipment to countries all over the world. We are like the boy that took the cow to market and come back with the beans. We've actually got to rebuild our industries, and we've got to, if we want to be a world player, we've got to open up the factories again.
Well, you're right, Sam. We've got to do it for ourselves. I think that's right, by our own initiative and drive. Thank you, Kevin. Eamon has sent in an excellent Facebook message, and he really hits the nail on the head. It's amazing that the Ramonas want another referendum when they fought tooth and nail not to have a referendum in the first place. I think you're absolutely spot on, and there is an element of hypocrisy in the second referendum crowd. But let's go to John in South Armagh. So it's nice to have a caller from Northern Ireland. John, what are your thoughts on this poll?
Jacob, how are you this fine evening?
Very well, thank you.
My thoughts on this poll are 46% Remain, even 54% for Leave. I really do believe that a people's vote is imminent and should be on the cards, at least.
But how many votes would we then have? Because we've had 3 votes around this already, because we had the 2015 general election, which promised a referendum, the referendum itself, and then the 2017 general election, when both the Labour Party and the Tory Party said they would respect the result. So how many votes do you have to have?
We've also got a government that have been through 3 consecutive leaders and still have not come to a conclusion.
Yeah, but that's a different point. We've had a democratic mandate to leave, but we still haven't left. The first vote hasn't been implemented. Exactly,
we still haven't left, and here I am, living in South Armagh, which I'm sure you're quite familiar with, during the Troubles, during the 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s, when we had British Army occupation on the hillsides, hard borders, checkpoints, cameras. We don't need to go back to all that, and the possibility of a no deal is...
But a no deal doesn't lead to a hard border.
I absolutely believe it will lead to a hard border.
Why?
Because the lies that's being told by English politicians, Northern Irish politicians... Example, Ian Paisley. If Ian Paisley loses his parliamentary seat because of his jaunts to the Maldives, where does that leave the Tory party with the supply and confidence rate?
But I don't think that's relevant. I was asking you why you thought there'd be a hard border, and you're now talking about Ian Paisley. Who is going to put this hard border in?
Well, it's already an English border. It was implemented by the English. People call it an Irish border. It's an English border. So I'm assuming the English will have some sort of implementation of putting it back in.
Why would we put a border in? We've said we won't.
Yeah, you've said loads of things. It's all been lies.
And there's already a border in terms of excise duties and VAT and so on. And that doesn't need infrastructure at the border, does it?
Well, it doesn't at the moment, but in the event of a no deal, it most likely will.
Why? Somebody's got to put it up, but nobody's going to. The Irish government said they won't, the British government said it won't, and the EU said it won't insist upon it. So who's doing this?
Well, I'm looking around me. I can see, different things going on. There's a customs post here where I lived, was demolished recently for what is being spoke locally as reconstruction. So, you've got stuff like that going on, and then you say there's going to be no hard border. I really can't understand the whole ethos of it.
OK. Well, thank you very much for your call. Let's go to Adrian in Edmonton in North London. Adrian, what's your view this evening?
Yeah, hello, Jacob. Thank you for taking my call. I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Yeah. I believe if there was another vote, I hope there isn't. I think it's pretty pointless, but I think Leave would win by a slightly increased majority. My reason for that is because what no one's mentioned after the last referendum, they may have mentioned it, I may have missed it, is the fact that although you had areas in London, say like Lambeth and all that voted 75% to Leave or what it was, you had areas like Stoke who voted 65% to Leave or whatever it was. But when you take all the polling constituencies, although there was only like a 4 million vote difference, twice as many constituencies, about 270, voted to Leave, and about 130 voted to Remain. And
yes.
I don't think these polls, right, they don't reflect the demographics throughout the country when they're taken, because some areas will be heavy Remain and some will be heavy Leave. What's your view on that?
So you think the polls are pulling from the Remain areas rather than the Leave areas?
I don't know if that's true, but I think I don't know how they sample the polls.
Well, they certainly underrepresented the Leave vote at the time of the referendum, didn't they? They thought that Leave would lose, and they were wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I was there all through it because I was a polling counting agent for UKIP, but I'm now a Brexit Party member. So,
oh, okay.
I watched it all happen.
And I imagine you want us to leave on the 31st of October.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And I don't see why we can't.
No.
And I just think that Britain will have a bright future outside the EU.
Well, I completely agree with you, Adrian. Thank you very much for your wise words this evening. You're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC at 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The Labour MP Chris Williamson has been readmitted to the party after being suspended in February over comments he made suggesting Labour's been too apologetic over anti-Semitism claims. He's been given a formal warning. The decision's been called an utter disgrace, though, by the Board of Deputies of British Jews. The DUP's leader says it's very important the UK leaves the European Union by the 31st of October, but is refusing to back either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt to become the next Prime Minister. Arlene Foster's insisting the government must tackle the problematic Irish border backstop issue and unlock the current withdrawal agreement. More than 10,000 climate change protesters have been demonstrating outside Parliament, asking their MPs to take action. It's believed to be one of the biggest mass lobbies in history. LBC weather, dry and increasingly cloudy across eastern and central England and northern Scotland through tonight. Clearer but chilly elsewhere, along with strong winds, particularly in the southwest, a low of 7 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast, weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Conservative candidate Jeremy Hunt positions the race as a matter of trust. Rory Stewart, of course, the man who was part of the Conservative leadership race.
I will support Jeremy Hunt because I think he would make a much better Prime Minister than Boris Johnson. He is telling people what they want to hear. One of the reasons why people are so fed up with politicians is this issue of trust, and if we let them down again, we're storing up trouble for us.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
Do you want to give your kids a head start? Think about it. Are you all set up to help with uni fees or a house deposit? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. The sooner you start a junior ISA with Wealthify, the more you can build them a tax-free nest egg. Just invest a lump sum or pay in monthly and let Wealthify do the rest. Start a junior ISA today. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
Little Red Riding Hood has been trying to sell her grandma's home for some time now, but the estate agent's shining, sharp teeth have left her with sweat on her brow.
Trust me, darling, I just want what's best for you, hence the added fees.
However, she spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who cut out the middleman and guaranteed a sale in as little as 48 hours with no fees whatsoever. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
I want to live in a world where we still have polar bears, where we reduce CO2 emissions. I want to live in a beautiful world.
If you want to help fight climate change, get a smart meter. They can't solve climate change on their own, but with the smarter, more energy-efficient grid they help to create, they're a start. Search I Want a Smart Meter or call 0300 131 5555 today from the Campaign for a Smarter Britain.
Eligibility may vary. Available in England, Scotland and Wales. Calls from UK landlines and mobiles charged at a standard rate.
The world of financial investments can be complex and intimidating, which is why you trusted the experts at your bank. But they let you down and sold you an investment that lost money. At Goodwin Barrett, we'll help you through the process of making a complaint and winning the compensation you deserve. Right now, Goodwin Barrett are offering a quick investment assessment to discover just how much you could be owed. To start yours, text GOOD to 60777. Text GOOD to 60777 now.
Get Vodafone's double data deal this summer. We're giving away double data on all pay monthly smartphones. Yes, all pay monthly smartphones. Now a huge 30 gig for the price of 15, starting at only £30 a month. Double the selfie sharing, double the playlist pumping, and double the maps mapping. To get double data, go online or in-store today. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone. Terms and details at vodafone.co.uk/summer. Ends 9th of July.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. Text 84850.
Well, welcome back. I'm standing in for Nigel Farage this evening, and we're discussing a YouGov opinion poll that said 57% of people still want to leave one way or another, and only 43% still want to remain. But we've also been talking about Boris Johnson and Jeremy Hunt. And look, I'm supporting Boris Johnson, as many of you may have heard me say before, so I'm not exactly an impartial commentator. But I think his commitment to leave come what may on the 31st of October is really important, because that's being straight with the British voter. It's delivering on the referendum result of 2016. And I'm disappointed that Jeremy Hunt has called us Little Englanders for wanting to do this. I'm not sure that's the right way to speak to Conservative members, and unlike Jeremy, who's such a civilised and intelligent man, we've had an enormous number of messages, Facebook, text, Twitter, the works. So I'll read a few of those out before I'm going to go to Jim in Mayo. So who have we got? Andrew in Berkshire says, yes, let's have another poll 12 months after we actually leave and see just how Brexit is working for the UK. We need some sort of a deal. That's why we haven't left yet. And James Bentley says, MPs should be legally bound to reflect and vote in line with the vote outcome of their constituency. This would all be done by now. Well, my constituency, according to the University of East Anglia, voted 52-48 to leave, exactly on the national average. And Andy has sent a Facebook message saying, it does sound like most people on here want another referendum. I'm not sure that's right from what I've been reading out in the discussion we've had. But David says, I can't understand why people think we can't stand on our own feet. Be proud to be British. Well, on that happy note, we'll go to Ireland, actually. Jim, what's your view of this?
Yes, I think this should be a second public vote, but only containing leave options.
Oh, OK. That's an interesting thought. So what options would you put on the table?
Well, however many I decided, I wouldn't decide that, but it could be May's deal, no deal, another, or several, whichever ones.
And which one would you go for? The one that... Would one of them have to get 50%? Would you have a preference vote?
I wouldn't go for any. I'm a Remainer.
OK. But I'm interested in your idea, because most people who are Remainers haven't been arguing for that. And I'd just like to understand how it would work. So say we had...
Can I explain?
Yeah,
I'll
please do.
explain.
Please do.
I'll explain. Because Parliament split, the government split, the opposition is pretty ineffectual, which is allowing the government to be as chaotic as it likes. I think there should be a second public vote and with various just leave options. And the highest one gets it on one condition, that the total number of votes cast equals or exceeds 17.4 million.
And what if it didn't?
That all the votes cast, not just the highest one. I'm saying the
I
highest
understand
one
that.
gets it. That's the way we leave.
Okay, but
That is the way we leave.
What if 17.3 million people voted? What would you do then?
Then it goes to a third, which includes Remain.
Oh, okay. Gosh, I think that's...
So I'm just saying, this is all in the hands of the Leavers. This is completely in the hands of the Leavers. Then.
I think it's a very interesting proposal. I think it's a bit complicated, and you wouldn't necessarily get any clarity. And you might get, if we look at this poll, 57% want to leave. Of those, 28% with no deal, 13% with May's deal, and 16% want a softer Brexit, whatever that may be. So on that basis, if you've got 17.4 million to vote, however they voted, you would leave with no deal.
Oh, whichever the highest one gets it. The highest one would get it. That determines how we leave.
Well, thank you very much. That's a novel thought and interestingly and thoroughly explained. I'm very grateful for your call. Alex, in Essex, do you think that's a good idea or would you not favour that?
Hi, Jacob.
Hello.
Just to let you know, I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, excellent. You're very
and an
welcome.
ardent Remainer, so...
Good, because I was appealing for Remainers because my scoreboard up in front of me was flashing with levers entirely, and we've got to get some balance, otherwise Ofcom will get frightfully upset. So thank you for keeping Ofcom happy.
Well, as to your question, a poll that involved just leave options, as you can see from the poll that came out from YouGov, it's only 28 and 29, is it? For both of the Brexit options, but Remain comes out on top at 43.
No, 57% go for some form of Brexit, 43% go for Remain. So soft Brexit leaves May's deal or no deal are the three that they categorise.
Yes, and as you said, they've gone for the leave side, but that leave side is split in much smaller numbers than the option to Remain.
But they don't divide up Remain, because you may remember lots of Remainers before the referendum were saying they wanted to remain but reform the European Union.
Yeah, that's very true.
So you're not comparing apples and apples, you're comparing apples and onions or whatever.
Well, the Remain position is, relatively clear.
Well, is it?
It's Remain in the European Union.
But lots of people still want to reform it, and they might want David Cameron's negotiation to come back and things like that.
Yes, I think almost all Remainers would not want to keep the EU exactly as it is. The EU is an ever-evolving organisation, and people want to be a part of that reform. And if we leave, we lose our seat at the table of what will be in 20, 30 years, if it still exists. I understand a lot of your listeners might be screaming at the radio.
Do you think it will still?
Be a superpower?
Do you think it will still exist, or do you think it will be a superpower?
If it exists, it will go on to be a superpower, economically, culturally, potentially militarily.
Okay, that's a very clever, if I may say so, politician's answer. You carefully qualified your statement. Do you think it will still exist?
I couldn't put a yes or no. It's not black and white. We're seeing a lot of anti-EU sentiment in Europe at the moment.
And where do you think the main tension is if it weren't to exist?
Could you clarify that?
Well, you're saying it may not exist. Do you think that's because of the tensions from the euro? Do you think it's the democratic deficit? Do you think it's the rise of populism in many continental countries? Where do you think the risks are?
You draw an interesting point. I think populism probably is the biggest threat that I see at the moment. But a very interesting thing has happened since Britain voted to leave. And that is that populists around Europe have stopped saying, we're going to leave the EU. Even Matteo Salvini's party was once saying, yes, we must get out. But now he's not even talking about leaving the euro.
No, but they're still sort of talking about issuing a parallel currency, which might have the same effect.
Yes, my point being, though, all of these, what I would term populist movements in Europe, were recently talking about leaving the EU, they've all gone very quiet on that since we voted to leave.
Okay.
I think they've seen what it can do to the fifth biggest economy, and that's not for them.
Well, our economy's been all right. It's growing faster than most European economies at the moment, certainly the big ones.
Yes, it's not growing faster than most European economies.
Well, it's growing faster than France,
Italy, Germany,
and Italy, all our big competitors. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of the EU. I mean,
but that makes up most of the European economy. If you take the four of us.
Yeah, if you include us in that, I mean, Britain, France, and Germany are absolute powerhouses.
And we're growing.
Sorry, go on.
We're, of the four big economies, we're the fastest growing, and therefore we're growing faster than the totality of the European economies.
Yeah, I could accept that for the past 2 years.
Okay.
The growth has been in our favour. I did want to draw very quickly on something, a couple of things that your callers have said at the beginning of the show.
Yeah.
I forget the gentleman's name. He was talking about us being the fifth biggest economy and Europe needing us more than we need them. You know, I talked about this idea of the EU becoming a superpower, and I think that there's a lot of evidence that points to, if you're not the US, the EU, China, or in 20, 30 years, maybe India, if you're not one of them or in one of them, you're very much in their sphere of influence. So, you know, we have a choice. It's go with the USA or go with the EU. And I think a lot of your callers they're saying right now, yeah, of course, we have more in common with the US.
So can I just ask, if there were a second vote,
yes,
and it came out to leave again, would you then be happy with that, or would you still campaign to remain after that?
Well, I wouldn't be happy with it. I'd be resigned, you know. I think 3 years ago, people did not envision this was going to be the Brexit we'd have. You know, people talked about having doing a deal in an afternoon.
Forgive me, I'm going to have to cut you off because we've got to go to the news, but thank you for giving us some balance this afternoon. I hope you'll call again. But you're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. It's 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The Labour MP Chris Williamson, who was suspended after claiming the party had been too apologetic over anti-Semitism, has now been readmitted. The DUP's leader says it's very important the UK leaves the EU by October the 31st, but has refused to back either Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt to become the next Prime Minister. More than 10,000 climate change protesters have been demonstrating outside Parliament today, demanding their MPs take action. LBC weather, dry and cloudy across eastern and central England and the far north through tonight. Clearer but chilly elsewhere with a low of 7 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. Queuing on the M25 clockwise between junction 9 for Leatherhead to junction 11 for Chertsey because of an accident earlier. Slow on Bath Road both ways from Hounslow West Station to the Henleys roundabout following another accident. And delays on the South Circular in both directions from Red Rovers to Chalkers Corner because of people avoiding the Hammersmith Bridge. Also queuing on the A13 eastbound at Movers Lane. That's because of a broken down van and not helped by the restrictions in place for roadworks. And only one Woolwich ferry is running because of emergency maintenance works.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Cross Question returns at 8 with a Labour peer, a Tory MP, a business leader and a Corbyn supporter. Could be juicy. And Are You a Little Englander at 9.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Air pollution is one of the most significant challenges facing inner and outer London, affecting the health of us all. LBC, together with Transport for London, will be finding out more about the issue and what's being done to address it. This week, Sheila Fogarty spoke to Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan.
All I want to say to Londoners is I'm afraid you can't see this killer, but it is a fact now confirmed by evidence that we have thousands of premature deaths each year in our city. If we do nothing, experts say from King's College it will take 193 years for our air to be within legal limits. With our policies, we'll get there by 2025.
Watch the full interview and find out how you can help reduce air pollution in the capital at lbc.co.uk.
So, your accountant does your audit for you, looks at your accounts, calculates your tax, stuff like that. But would you benefit from long-term advice, an expert to look at your business model and help your business grow? And most importantly, someone to look after you, the owner. At Barnes Rofe, our partners get to know their clients and want to become part of their team. Is it time to see what we can do for you? Arrange your free consultation at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe. Clever accountants for business.
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Block management. 2 very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters: ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
You can complain free to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman about missold PPI. Alternatively, if you haven't got the time or the inclination, then just get the claims guys to manage the claims process for you. With the August 29th deadline approaching, time's at a premium anyway. So if you can't find your paperwork or you're not even sure you have PPI, it's definitely time to make a decision and start your PPI claim before it's too late. Text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Leading Britain's conversation. Jacob Rees-Mogg. Tweet at LBC.
Welcome back. We've been discussing a YouGov opinion poll that said 57% of people wanted to leave, 43% to remain, and Boris's commitment to leave on the 31st of October against Jeremy Hunt's Little Englander comment. Dozens of tweets, etc. I'll read a few of those. Megan says, no more referenda. We had a vote. We must respect the result regardless of how we voted. That is democracy. At present, Parliament is acting as a dictatorship. And Mark says, people have changed their minds. I know 2 what were hard-line Remainers that just want to bloomin' well end the agony and just bloomin' well leave now. I don't know any Brexiteers that are not more determined than ever that we should leave the EU. Bloomin' well is a wonderful phrase. We'll have Eliza Doolittle on the telephone, I hope, in the next quarter of an hour. Hi, Jacob, says Yvonne from Luton. I voted in 70s not to join EU and have waited 40 years to get out. Then Remainers trying to stop it. Get no deal and save £39 billion. That's a very sensible view, Yvonne. Thank you for your message. And John Gallagher says, if Hunt is now a believer, I'm sure there are more. And that's a B-lever, L-E-A-V-E-R, for those of you who are interested. Stuart, you're a new caller from Poole in Dorset, not too far away from God's own county of Somerset. And we always welcome West Country callers. What is your thought this evening?
Hello, Jacob.
Evening.
I just want to thank you for you and the ERG and all the levers for standing up for us.
Well, thank you.
No, it's great. I just wondered, with Jeremy Hunt, can you imagine what sort of cabinet he would have? Can you imagine what it'd be like Theresa May again, wouldn't it, really?
Well, unkind commentators have said that Mr. Hunt is like Theresa May in trousers. I don't want to go down that route. I don't want to go down that route because I don't think Tories should be disagreeable about each other.
I know, but do you think that little Englanders thing proves what he really believes?
I'm sorry he said that. Because I don't think it's right. I think so many people who want to leave are actually internationalists and look at the broader international...
Yeah, but do you think that proves what he believes, Jacob?
I think it shows that Remainers very rarely change their spots, actually.
They don't. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
I mean, they all thought Theresa May was going to put it through, and she wasn't.
That's the problem. It's once bitten, twice shy, isn't it? That we thought Mrs. May had become a leaver, and we accepted her assertion.
And we all did. We all thought, at the first, didn't we? We all thought that was the right thing.
And we had the Lancaster House speech, which we thought was excellent and really clear.
Brilliant, yeah.
And then it all started going wrong, and Jeremy seems to be heading down that route before the leadership election's over, which is a pity.
I think, Jacob, if it wasn't for you and the Brexit Party, we would have been losing the will to live.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
We're just about losing all hope, really.
I think the way events have turned out has meant it's been really important what the ERG, Steve Baker particularly, has done really well. Anyway, thank you for that. We're going to go to David in Worcestershire. David, what are your thoughts?
Good evening, Mr. Rees-Mogg. It's a great pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for calling.
My opinion is that I think the Leave vote will be a lot bigger because so many Leavers have got so fed up that they're angrier, they're more determined, and some Remainers are now coming over to the Leave side because they do believe in democracy.
I think that's right. I think a lot of people take that view, actually, that they accept the result and they think we should get on with it.
I agree. Can I give you one thing to take back to Parliament with you?
Certainly.
Right. I'm a war-disabled pensioner. I suffer from post-traumatic stress. When I was in the forces, it wouldn't have mattered who was in Parliament. I would have gone anywhere to fight.
Yes.
I've only asked them for one thing, and that is to leave the EU. And I sincerely hope they do.
Well, I agree with that.
And Mr. Johnson will win the election. He will become Prime Minister. I think he'll make a good Prime Minister, but he's going to need good people behind him. And I think you are one of the good people. You're very intelligent. Your brain is fantastic, and I hope you'll give him all the assistance he needs.
Well, I will back him all the way. But, David, thank you so much for your call and for your public service in serving your country. We're now going to Alex in Uxbridge. So, Alex, you're actually represented by the great Boris Johnson. So we will all listen very carefully to what one of his constituents has to say. Fire away, please.
No problem. Good evening.
Good evening.
To be honest, I didn't vote for Remain or Leave in that referendum. I wasn't able to vote. I am a European citizen that started living here in 2015. But what I think about the poll that you're asking is why even we are doing in these polls? We have the results of the referendum and we should respect it.
That's a very good point. So we should get on and leave.
Sorry?
So we should get on and leave, is your view? Because we've had the referendum.
At the time of the referendum, I wasn't able to vote, but I was telling all of my friends to vote Remain, because of what I was thinking. But right now, I think everybody all these polls that we are doing has no effect at all. Maybe some people change their mind. We should just tell them that you made a decision. Right now, just grow up and accept the consequences of that decision.
Yes. Well, Alex, I think
your mind is not important.
We need more people with your good common sense. Thank you very much for your call. We've had a message from Marcus who says, I would rather be a little Englander than be ruled by Merkel and Macron. And Alan said, I wanted to leave so that we could deal with the rest of the world. That makes me an internationalist, not a little Englander. Alan, my sentiments exactly. Evan in Slough, do you think you're a little Englander, or are you in favour of remaining, or what's your view?
Hi, Jacob. I'm in favour of remaining. I mean, there was a poll by the Tories where they showed that the actual voters there didn't mind Ireland breaking away, they didn't mind Scotland leaving, and they didn't mind severe damage to the UK economy. In fact, they're quite happy for Farage to be leadership. I mean, I would wonder what percentage of those people actually support the most extreme Brexit. Because, I mean, you do get it, that you cannot claim moderate support for the most extreme Brexit.
Well, this poll said 28% wanted to leave without a deal of the 57% who wanted to leave. So
so 28%, how does that compare to 48%?
Well, you've got 57% who want to leave, 16% want a soft Brexit, 13% with May's deal, and 28% with a...
If you split the 52% that wanted to leave, and you say 30%, say, wanted the most extreme Brexit, then you divide the moderate vote between the Remain and the hardest Brexit, And the most democratic vote is most clearly Remain. You have to have a second vote. It's democratic.
I don't think that's right at all. I think this is the most extraordinary deconstructionism of the referendum result to get whatever result you want. You say, well, if you take some people...
I'm talking about how we leave.
People
We're
voted...
talking about how we leave.
People voted to leave. That's the key.
Yes.
And you've got to
There's
implement leaving. And to say, oh, well, there are lots of people who don't like what leaving actually means is basically saying that they didn't know what they were voting about.
If you make promises to people that you're not delivering on, which is clearly the case...
Well, we're going to deliver on the 31st of October, I'm glad to say. But we're running out of time, and I'm going to get in a few messages from other people before we finish, because what we got, Sophie has said, hang on a mo, Theresa's WA and a softer Brexit have been described by ERG members as not Brexit. So only 29% want Brexit by your own definition. Therefore, 71% don't want Brexit. You can't have it both ways. I think we're like the last caller from Slough who wants to cut and chop things up to get the result you want. And Dean Dulwich, Jacob, you said the same thing about May. You trusted her to do the right thing and leave. The same exact words, but now about Boris. Please explain. It's a very good question. The sort of tough question that Ian Dale likes to ask people, and he's coming on a little bit later, fresh from having asked very tough questions
of Boris
Jacob,
Johnson. Answer the question.
And the answer is that Boris has always been a leaver. And I made a leap of faith with Mrs May, which turned out to have been disappointed. But Boris has backed Brexit throughout the campaign, and therefore I think my faith is justified. But on that happy note, I'm out of time. So Ian can't ask me difficult questions
I can't
this
come
evening.
back to you 5 times now, which is my reputation now, apparently. So.
Well, not unless I stay on beyond 7. You've been listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. I'm back on Friday evening from 6 p.m. At 10 o'clock, it's Tom Swarbrick. But as you'd already know, next up, it's Ian Dale.
Jacob, thank you very much indeed. Coming up at 8, Cross Question. We haven't had a Cross Question for a few weeks because of the Tory leadership interviews, but it returns tonight. We have the Conservative MP for Chichester, Gillian Keegan, with us. Michael Walker from Novara Media, keen Corbyn supporter, former Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary, Lord Charlie Faulkner, and Mark Fox, Chief Executive of the Business Services Association. The lines for Cross Question are already open. If you'd like to give us a call and put a question to the panel, 0345 6060 97.